Tonight, there are airport delays across the country, and they're causing an uproar on both sides of the political aisle. I'm Rockman Johnson, and this is Bounce News at 7. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. And some airlines are saying that weather is to blame, but the FAA's official response is that cutbacks due to sequestration are to blame for nationwide flight delays. Now, Republicans are saying one thing, Democrats are saying other. Republicans are calling for the White House to lift the sequestration that has caused the FAA to make major cuts at large airports.
It's an absolute outrage that the FAA administrator was not forthcoming at our appropriations hearing last week. And it is also a manufactured crisis that this administration has the authority, working with Congress, to prevent.
Now, the White House was not about to take this lying down. They said that Congress shouldn't be surprised since they are the group that voted for the sequester.
The sequester was a law written by Congress. They passed it, they voted for it, they should know what's in it. But the law specifically walls off 3/4 of the department's budget from sequestration and does not give the department any flexibility to mitigate the impact on the FAA.
Now, Florida Governor Rick Scott continues to speak out against the furlough. The governor says that it will keep tourists out of Florida, which of course is one of the nation's largest tourist destinations. And he said it will deny businesses and the state's economy millions of dollars each year. Now, of course, as we look forward and taking the governor's some of his attention this week is a controversial new proposal in Florida that is awaiting the governor's signature. It's a new bill that sets guidelines for alimony awards based on how long a couple was married. Now, this bill goes into effect, or it hasn't gone into effect until the governor signs it, but he said there's a default 50-50 custody award for divorcing couples who have children. Now, yesterday, State Representative Rich Workman introduced 6,000 separate stories from people whose divorces have ended in disaster. He says there were examples of why Rick Scott should sign this bill. Now, the governor says he's reviewing the bill, and Representative Workman has given him until Monday to sign it. Now, in issuing this ultimatum, the bill has drawn opposition, mostly from family lawyers. And tonight we have on the phone with us Karen Porras. She's the chair of the Karen Porras, who's the chair of the family law of the Florida Bar, family law practice of the Florida Bar. How are you, Karen?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me. And tell us, obviously the bar is not taking a position one way or the other, but what impact will this bill have on couples divorcing in the state?
Well, actually, the family law section, not the Florida Bar itself, but the family law section of the bar has taken a position in opposition because of the detrimental effects that we feel the bill will cause and the consequences of it. One of those was what you just mentioned, was in this alimony reform bill, there is a presumption that an equal time sharing schedule is in the best interest of each child, each and every child that is in one of these actions. And that is a complete turnaround from what the current law requires, which is for the courts to base a time-sharing plan on the best interest of the child.
So, Karen, how does this differ? The new law that is going to be put into effect, how will that differ from the current laws that are in Florida right now?
Well, in regard to this time-sharing schedule, it takes into consideration more the rights of the parents as opposed to what's in the child's best interest, without looking at each case on an individual basis.
And it seems as though, I mean, to standardize, it goes back to that 1020 life. A lot of people were fighting against that, saying that it takes the power away from judges to make the decisions. In this case, judges or mediators will not have as much power to make the decisions, and there's not one blanket thing, it seems, that would fit all of the divorce issues that happen across the state. So are there other states that may have done this before that Florida may be looking after for some kind of precedent?
Well, with regard to the alimony, they continually point to Massachusetts, which just last year reformed its alimony bills. But Massachusetts' law before that were in the dark ages. Florida's alimony laws were reformed as recently as 2010 and 2011 and are pretty current with the rest of the country. Very few of states have actually eliminated permanent alimony.
And Karen, I'm assuming it cuts both ways too, whether it be the father as the custodial parent or the mother as the custodial parent, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we'll keep our eye on what the governor does. Again, thank you, Karin, for joining us and giving us a little bit more background on the bill. We'll give you some details on that on our website at bouncenews.tv. Now, coming up in just a moment on Bounce News tonight, a person disguised as a nurse walks into a hospital in Seattle. She steals drugs literally out of patients' arms. We'll take a look at how that can happen. And fraud within Florida's early education programs. We'll take a look at government trying to rein in spending. It's just ahead. We'll be right back. Last week, 15,000 students went to Texas to participate in the World Robotics Championship. And there were over 700 teams from 24 countries around the world. The event's put on by the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. Now, their purpose is to be of increase in student technology interest in STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And that looks like a lot of fun. I think I need one of those robots to clean my house. Congratulations to all of the participants. I'm Rockman Johnson, and you are with us, Bounce News at 7. And early learning school prep for younger children is just an important thing. It's a component of our educational system that many systems around the world don't have. But recent audits show that there's been fraud happening within some early education systems in Florida. Bounce TV's Brittany Jones is taking a closer look at this issue.
These 4-year-olds are getting an early start to their education, a move lawmakers say is much needed for these kids' success.
When children are learning at an early age, when they go into kindergarten and they go on, they are far more likely to succeed than those who have not had this early training.
And then one more.
That's why they're now working to reform the state early learning system. The plan? To do 3 things: governance, accountability, and transparency.
How do I know that my dollars are being used efficiently? How can I go online and see where my dollars are in my local community?
Those are all questions Shan Goff, Executive Director of Florida Office of Early Learning, says taxpayers want to know. State tax dollars fund a portion of the school readiness and voluntary pre-K programs like this one. The total, more than $500 million a year. But with recent audit reports revealing fraud in student attendance and parent eligibility, Dominic Calabro, the Florida Tax Watch Group, says a more efficient system is needed.
Record keeping, time attendance, and it was very, very poor. And we want to make sure that we're not paying for services that are not provided.
Services more than 300,000 children depend on. And with these changes, lawmakers say they'll be able to help even more children.
We have a substantial waiting list of children, and we want to serve them all if we can. We may never ever get to all, but we certainly ought to strive for it.
From a safety aspect, it's much safer. Also, we've added bars to the back windows, and so when people try to escape, they have to go through the metal bars versus just kicking out a piece of glass.
Now, that was one of the officers from the Bainbridge Police Department. Get this, $300,000. That's what he's talking about. $300,000 on cop cars. What do you think about that? That's what he was talking about. Some responders from Facebook say it's wasteful and shameful, and others say, oh, come on, that's only 10 cars. I want to know what you think about that. Bainbridge, Georgia, they have about 12,000 residents in the city, and they just spent about $30,000 per cop car for 10 cop cars, $300,000. We want to know what you think. Hashtag BB Police Car, or you can check out our Facebook page and join the conversation. We want to know what you think. Just ahead on Bounce News tonight, we're talking invention, inspiration, and more. Tonight on Science Chat with Casanova Nurse. And a fake nurse steals hospital drugs? That just don't sound right at all. We'll be right back. I'm Rockman Johnson. It's Bounce News at 7, and tonight Seattle authorities are looking for a woman who posed as a fake hospital nurse. They say she looked the part, but she was only after medication. John Humbert takes a deeper look.
In a place of healing, the oath is do no harm, but a brazen theft left the medical community stunned at Swedish on First Hill.
It sounded like that took some planning, and it sounds really odd to me.
Seattle police say a woman came to the patient floor fully decked out in nurse's shoes and what looked like hospital gear.
You can get Crocs anywhere, and you can get blue scrubs anywhere.
But this was a fake nurse looking for some very real drugs. The police report says the woman went into one room and apparently cut part of the IV line for powerful pain medication in order to steal it. Nurse Sally Burkle says there are potent meds on the floor.
Dilaudid or morphine or fentanyl.
Then police say the imposter took it one step further, actually going into a bedridden patient's room with family still inside. The report says the woman cut another IV line, but this time there was a pool of blood left behind, possibly from a patient. Police say the woman's motives were clear.
And either drinking the meds or putting it into a container that, filling a container that she's taking with her.
The woman was able to slip out, but police are now reviewing surveillance photos. Witnesses said she was very comfortable talking about medical terms. Police say that helped her pull off the bold crime.
Walk with an air of legitimacy as they're going about their criminality.
A warning that harm can come from any place.
I think that most of us are pretty cautious of that.
Even a place that should always be safe.
Now, we wanted to dig a little bit deeper, and on the phone with us right now is Warren Jones. He's the Vice President and Chief Communications Officer for Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. Now, Warren, how can something like this be prevented from happening?
Well, communication is a key in something like this, and what we do is make sure that the patients in the room are familiar with who is taking care of them. For instance, a nurse who is taking care of you, who might be leaving at the end of her shift, comes in with the next nurse on the next shift who is going to be taking care of you and introduces that nurse to the patient. And we also have consistent ID badges, and we tell patients to look for those ID badges and match up the name with the face on the ID badge. And finally, we also make sure that the patient knows all of the members of the care team who are going to be coming into the room and write down the names of those patients on a board in the room.
Now, there are people who are going in and out and back and forth in the room all the time, but what other security measures, or there's got to be something else, is something in place that prevents this from happening again somewhere here?
Well, there are other security measures which I don't want to get into, obviously, because we don't want people to know what they are. But we do have access onto the floors where people are in stations who see who's coming in, who's leaving. They know the people who should be on the floor and are checking for badges.
Now, a lot of the things that this person took, they were Dilaudid and fentanyl and other powerful painkillers, which means a lot of the patients were probably sedated or something like that. What should family members do so that they can look out and be aware of something like this and protect their family members?
Well, again, always be aware of your surroundings, and unfortunately we're all being told that no matter where we are in our communities. Be aware of your surroundings, be aware of who's around you, and ask questions if you have any concerns.
Thank you again for spending some time with us. Again, that's Warren Jones from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. Warren, we appreciate that information. Just ahead tonight on Bounce News at 7, it's Your Best Life, a story you won't soon forget. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Bounce News, and today's Science Chat's all about modern technology, the stuff that was actually inspired by TV, stuff that we use every day. Books, movies, all those things inspire that. And with us is our Chief Science Officer, Casanova Nurse. And Casanova, almost the iPad I have, the cell phone, all of this stuff is inspired by some amazing movies. And you and I were talking, and that's why I wanted to do this segment, because everything we use today really was thought about a long time ago, and people thought it could never exist.
Yes, it was pure fiction when some of these everyday items were first thought of, and it's amazing how technology and innovation really helped to bring these items to life, and they're pretty much mainstream nowadays.
What are some of the things, and I mean, let's go over some of the shows and some of the stuff that has come from them. And like my iPad, when I tell you, or any tablet, I don't know what I would do without a tablet.
It's tough to imagine life without mobile technology like this. And of course, cell phones, a big part of everyday life with texting and video recording straight from your phone. Trekkies will know that back in the original series in the 60s, they used communicators, which were very similar to flip phones that we have used for many years now, but it's definitely a commonplace item, and it's not just limited to outer space.
What about, there's some of the other things, and we're talking about Star Trek. I think most of the technology stuff that we use, even though there's some great books and movies and stuff we're looking at, but didn't most of the stuff come from Star Trek?
That was the inspiration behind many of the modern pieces of technology we use. They were very computer intensive, and of course the spaceships, we don't have an enterprise like that, but of course we have the space shuttles, and the space shuttles didn't travel all throughout the universe, but that was part of the drive, that era of space exploration, and it really helped to push space technology into the modern day era.
What are some of the other key things? Any other key devices or gadgets in movies that they go with?
Well, think of the movie Back to the Future.
Okay.
And there were many different things. The time traveling machine, we don't have one of those quite yet.
I've been looking for a flux capacitor. I'm just saying.
They're in high demand but low supply, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But one thing that is common nowadays is using video conferencing through various programs. Skype is very popular, and there was a video conferencing feature that was used in the second movie of Back to the Future, which was released in 1989, that had very much people talking to each other. They could see the other person on the screen, and believe it or not, this is very common even today.
If there was no FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, I wouldn't have a show. Let's be real. We're talking to people
all the time,
all over the country, right? Good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
It's a neat way to connect. And something that's been around for many years, the submarine. Underwater travel, that was inspired by the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was written way back in 1870.
Look at there. And now we look at these things that have completely changed our lives.
It's an everyday thing that we don't think about.
Science Chat with Casanova Nurse. Always learning something new.
That's right.
Thanks, Cass.
Sure.
Coming up ahead on Bounce News tonight, a life lesson from a national hero. It's your best life. We'll be right back. Thanks so much, Mika. And now in tonight's Your Best Life, there's been so much discussion about what has gone on in Boston with the suspected bombers, but the real story lies in the resilience of Bostonians and the stories about healing and heroism. Now, there are many stories I'm sure that we'll share in the coming days, but one story that stands out is the story of a man who captured Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. His name is David Hinnenberry.
People are calling you a national hero. You know that.
Incidental hero. I wasn't out on the prowl. I was out to see my boat, and I stumbled across this. That's
But you've contacted everyone. You did the right steps.
Yeah.
And it reached a successful conclusion.
It did do that. I guess it did do that. I'm glad. I'm just glad. That if, I hate to use cliches or words, but if the people killed can get some from
in many ways, they do.
Then I'm at peace with it,
The beauty of that moment is, and it touches me, when I saw that, I had to share it with you because David looked beyond himself to hopefully save lives, and it could have easily been another life that was taken. In fact, it could have been his life when he looked underneath that tarp, but it took him taking the chance, peering under the tarp, and possibly saving other people. His humility, his humble spirit, by agreeing to give any reward back to the survivors, that's a lesson to live by. David Hinnenberry is a true American hero. He's a true treasure, and he indeed gives us tonight another key to living your best life. Now, we'll leave links on how you can help in the healing for Boston on our website. They're going through so much still in Boston, but we can help them to change the future. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Casanova, again, thanks so much for Science Chat and being here with us.
Anytime.
We look forward to more.
That's right.
And you can always stay up to date with what's going on, the developments and the latest from Boston and around the globe on our website, bouncenews.tv. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.